Well, it certainly doesn't show any faith or confidence that they have in their ability to appeal that decision, which was categorical and blistering, that it was a violation of the appointments clause in the Constitution, and that there was no power to do what the new U.S. attorney did.
Well, look, Congressman, I think you hit the nail on the head here. I have been saying for weeks that the Justice Department under this Trump administration has been re-engineered to serve the president's purposes.
According to the assessment, on 11 September, the day after conservative activist Charlie Kirk's assassination, Patel arrived in Provo, Utah, but refused to leave the FBI jet without an appropriate raid jacket.
Okay, so this is absolutely insane. Trump just made a catastrophic mistake that is going to destroy his remaining legal defenses and potentially trigger new criminal charges. A federal judge just issued an order launching an immediate investigation into Trump's conduct and the conduct of his associates. The judge basically dismantled all of Trump's remaining legal arguments. The judge cleared the way for imminent sentencing. The judge said there are no more legal mechanisms for delay. Everything is moving forward, and Trump's actual response where it was to threaten the judge. Trump openly threatened the judge. Trump made comments about retribution against the judge. Trump talked about what he's going to do to judges and prosecutors and witnesses who he considers enemies. This is obstruction of justice. This is witness intimidation. This is criminal threatening. This is all being documented and recorded and used as evidence against Trump right now. Trump just created new charges against himself by threatening a federal judge after the judge issued an order Trump didn't like. Are you kidding me? This is the moment where Trump's legal position becomes completely untenable because Trump is committing new crimes in real time while he's already facing criminal investigation. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest, you can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us. Be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
Which is dark and difficult things in the dead of night on behalf of the American people.
We played that clip a little bit earlier for a general and a lieutenant colonel to get their response and reaction. I want to get yours, sir, because I'm curious if you think that the fog of war...
Let me be absolutely clear about what Trump did. The judge issued a ruling that was devastating to Trump's legal defense. The judge said Trump's immunity claims don't work. The judge said Trump's arguments that this is all a witch hunt don't hold up in court. The judge said the evidence of Trump's conduct is overwhelming. The judge said Trump's legal team needs to stop delaying and prepare for sentencing. The judge basically said, we're done with all your motions and appeals and delays. We're moving forward to sentencing. And Trump got on the phone or went on social media or called his lawyers and started making threats. Trump said, judges better watch out. Trump said, prosecutors better watch out. Trump said, witnesses better watch out. Trump said there's going to be consequences for people who go after Trump. And Trump said it all publicly. Trump said it in ways that could be heard and documented and recorded. And every single word Trump said is now evidence of obstruction of justice. Every single word Trump said is now evidence of witness intimidation. Every single word Trump said is now evidence of criminal threatening. And judges who already had concerns about Trump's conduct are now looking at these threats and saying, this is it. This is the moment where we have to act. This is the moment where Trump crosses the line from being a defendant in legal cases to being someone who is actively obstructing justice and intimidating witnesses and threatening the judiciary itself. Legal experts are absolutely alarmed by what Trump did because they understand the implications. Trump just gave prosecutors the exact evidence they need for new criminal charges. Trump just gave judges the exact justification they need for harsher sentences. Trump just gave Congress the exact justification they need for impeachment. Trump basically handed his enemies a roadmap to destroy him legally and politically, and Trump did it voluntarily. Trump did it knowingly. Trump did it in a way that was documented and recorded and public. There's no way for Trump to claim that he was taken out of context or misunderstood. The threats are clear, the intent is clear, the criminal conduct is clear. And everybody, judges, prosecutors, Congress, the media, the public, everybody understood exactly what Trump was doing. Trump was threatening the judiciary because he didn't like a ruling. Trump was trying to intimidate judges into ruling in Trump's favor. Trump was trying to suppress testimony from witnesses by threatening them with consequences. This is authoritarian behavior. This is the behavior of a dictator trying to suppress justice by using threats and intimidation. The judges involved in Trump's cases are now visibly alarmed. Judges are looking at Trump's threats and understanding that Trump is a threat to the judicial system itself. Judges are understanding that Trump doesn't respect the rule of law. Judges are understanding that Trump will use any means necessary, threats, intimidation, violence, to avoid accountability. And judges are responding by becoming more aggressive in their rulings against Trump. Judges are responding by accelerating the timeline for sentencing. Judges are responding by taking Trump's threats seriously and documenting them as evidence. Some judges are even taking extraordinary steps to protect their own safety because they're worried about what Trump might do. This is not normal. This is not how American politics normally works. This is a moment where judges are actually worried about their personal safety because of a sitting president's threats against them. The documented nature of Trump's threats is also critical because there's no way for Trump to deny them or walk them back. Trump made these threats publicly. Trump made these threats in ways that could be recorded. Trump made these threats in ways that multiple people heard, so there's no ambiguity. There's no he said, she said about whether Trump made threats. The threats are documented. The threats are on the record. The threats can be used as evidence in court. And Trump made them knowing that they would be documented and used against him. So either Trump is absolutely stupid and doesn't understand that his threats are criminal, or Trump is so desperate and so cornered legally that he's willing to commit new crimes in hopes that threats and intimidation will change the outcome of his cases. Either way, Trump is making a catastrophic mistake. Either way, Trump is creating new legal exposure for himself. The timeline for sentencing is also significant because the judge just eliminated all the delay mechanisms. Trump's lawyers have been using every tactic to delay sentencing, filing motions, requesting continuances, appealing rulings, asking for stays. But the judge just said no more. The judge said we're moving forward. The judge said sentencing is happening imminently. The judge said there are no more legal mechanisms available for delay. And Trump's response to having his delay tactics eliminated was to threaten the judge. Trump basically said, if you sentence me, there will be consequences. Trump basically said, if you move forward with this case, I'm going to retaliate. And now the judge is looking at Trump's threats and saying, this person is a threat to the court system itself. This person needs to be removed from power. This person needs to face serious consequences. So Trump's threats just accelerated his legal downfall instead of delaying it. So let's dig deeper into what's actually happening here and why Trump's threats against judges and prosecutors represent such a critical escalation in his legal and political crisis. Trump has been under legal siege for months. Trump has been facing investigations and lawsuits and criminal charges from multiple directions. Trump's lawyers have been filing motion after motion trying to delay proceedings and suppress evidence and claim privilege and assert immunity. But step by step, judges have been rejecting Trump's legal arguments. Judges have been ruling against Trump. Judges have been clearing obstacles to prosecution. And now, with all his legal delays exhausted, with all his legal arguments rejected, with sentencing imminent, Trump is resorting to threats and intimidation because Trump has run out of legitimate legal options. The judge's ruling that dismantled Trump's immunity claims is particularly important because it represents the collapse of Trump's primary legal defense. For months, Trump's lawyers have been arguing that Trump cannot be prosecuted for anything he did as president because of presidential immunity. Trump's lawyers have been arguing that courts have no power to investigate Trump's official presidential conduct. Trump's lawyers have been arguing that Trump is protected from prosecution. But the judge looked at Trump's conduct and concluded that Trump's actions were not official presidential acts. Trump's actions were political activity done in Trump's capacity as a private citizen engaged in a political campaign. And that conduct falls outside immunity protection. So the immunity defense collapses. Trump is no longer protected. Trump can be prosecuted. And now sentencing is moving forward. The judge's ruling that eliminated delay mechanisms is also devastating because it shows that Trump is out of legal options. Trump's lawyers have been using every tactic in the book to delay proceedings, but the judge has rejected all of them. The judge is saying, I've heard enough. I've read enough motions. I've listened to enough arguments. We're moving forward. Sentencing is happening, and there's nothing Trump can do to stop it through legal means. So Trump is faced with a choice. Either accept the legal process and prepare for sentencing, or resort to threats and intimidation to try to change the outcome. Trump chose threats and intimidation. Trump chose criminal behavior. Trump chose to threaten judges and prosecutors and witnesses. Now let's talk about what Trump's threats actually were and why they constitute new crimes. Trump reportedly said that judges better watch out. That's a threat. That's saying judges should be afraid because there will be consequences for ruling against Trump. Trump reportedly said that prosecutors better watch out. That's a threat. That's saying prosecutors should be afraid because there will be consequences for prosecuting Trump. Trump reportedly said that witnesses better watch out. That's a threat. That's saying witnesses should be afraid because there will be consequences for testifying against Trump. These are not political rhetoric. These are not hyperbole. These are direct threats of retaliation against judges and prosecutors and witnesses, and direct threats of retaliation are criminal conduct. Direct threats of retaliation constitute obstruction of justice. Direct threats of retaliation constitute witness intimidation. And all of it is being documented and recorded as evidence. The fact that Trump made these threats after receiving a judicial ruling he didn't like makes them even more damaging because it shows Trump's motive for making the threats. Trump is trying to intimidate judges into ruling in Trump's favor. Trump is trying to suppress testimony by intimidating witnesses. Trump is trying to interfere with the judicial process by threatening prosecutors. This is exactly what obstruction of justice laws are designed to prevent. This is exactly what witness intimidation laws are designed to prevent. Trump is engaging in textbook obstruction and intimidation, and Trump is doing it publicly and knowingly and in ways that are easily documentable and provable. And the judges' responses to Trump's threats have been appropriately serious. Judges are alarmed. Judges are concerned about their personal safety. Judges are documenting the threats. Judges are treating the threats as evidence of Trump's criminal conduct. Some judges are even taking extraordinary security measures because they're worried about Trump followers potentially acting on Trump's threats. This is a serious moment where the judicial system is under threat from a sitting president. This is a serious moment where judges have to actually worry about their personal safety because they're ruling against the president. And judges are responding by becoming more aggressive in their pursuit of Trump's prosecution because judges understand that they cannot allow Trump to succeed in intimidating them. If judges back down, if judges make rulings in Trump's favor just because Trump threatened them, then the rule of law collapses. Then judges become Trump's puppets instead of independent arbiters of law. The implications for Trump's legal defense are also devastating because Trump's threats just made Trump's legal situation dramatically worse. Trump's lawyers have been trying to build a defense based on the argument that Trump is a victim of political persecution. Trump's lawyers have been trying to build a defense based on the argument that Trump is innocent and the whole thing is a witch hunt. But now Trump has made threats against judges and prosecutors and witnesses. Now Trump has engaged in obvious criminal conduct. Now Trump has handed prosecutors exactly the evidence they need for new charges. Trump's entire defense strategy just collapsed because Trump's own actions prove that Trump is willing to use threats and intimidation to interfere with justice. That's not the behavior of an innocent person. That's the behavior of someone guilty who is desperately trying to avoid accountability. The new criminal charges that will result from Trump's threats are also a nightmare for Trump. Trump is going to face obstruction of justice charges. Trump is going to face witness intimidation charges. Trump is going to face criminal threatening charges. And these new charges are in addition to all the charges Trump already faces. So instead of Trump's legal problems getting resolved, Trump's legal problems are multiplying. Instead of Trump's legal exposure decreasing, Trump's legal exposure is increasing dramatically. Trump is creating new liability for himself by threatening judges and prosecutors and witnesses. And all of these threats are going to be used as evidence in Trump's trials. All of these threats are going to be presented to juries. All of these threats are going to be part of Trump's record of criminal conduct. Juries are going to look at Trump's threats and understand that Trump is trying to intimidate judges and suppress testimony. And juries are going to convict Trump based on that evidence. The political implications are also devastating because Trump's threats against judges and prosecutors just made it impossible for Republicans to defend Trump. Republicans were already struggling to defend Trump's conduct. Republicans were already facing pressure to break with Trump over his abuse of power. But now Trump has made direct threats against the judiciary. Now Trump has engaged in obvious witness intimidation. Now Trump has committed additional crimes in plain sight. And Republicans can't defend that. Republicans can't go on television and say Trump's threats against judges are okay. Republicans can't argue that witness intimidation is acceptable behavior. Republicans can't argue that obstruction of justice is fine. So Republicans have to distance themselves from Trump. Republicans have to break with Trump, and that fractures the GOP even further heading into 2026 midterms. Trump's threats against judges just accelerated the breakdown of Trump's political coalition. Okay, so let's break down what Trump's threats against judges and prosecutors mean for Trump's immediate legal future and why this represents a turning point in Trump's legal and political downfall. There are basically 4 critical things you need to understand about why this escalation is so damaging and what comes next. First, Trump's threats against judges just gave prosecutors the exact evidence they needed for new criminal charges. Prosecutors have been building cases against Trump for various crimes, but prosecutors have always struggled with Trump's defense claims that Trump is innocent and that everything is a witch hunt. But now Trump has made threats. Now Trump has engaged in obvious criminal conduct. Now prosecutors have video evidence and audio recordings and documented proof that Trump is trying to intimidate judges and suppress testimony. Prosecutors are going to file new charges against Trump. Prosecutors are going to add counts of obstruction of justice. Prosecutors are going to add counts of witness intimidation. Prosecutors are going to add counts of criminal threatening. And all of these new charges are going to be much harder to defend against because the evidence is Trump's own words. Trump admitted making the threats. Trump is on the record making the threats. Trump made the threats publicly knowing they would be documented. So Trump cannot successfully defend against these new charges. Trump is going to be convicted of the new charges if they go to trial. Trump's only option is to plead guilty and beg for leniency. But judges who have been threatened by Trump are not going to show leniency. Judges who have been intimidated by Trump are going to impose harsh sentences as punishment for Trump's witness intimidation and obstruction. Second, Trump's threats have energized the judges and prosecutors who are pursuing Trump's prosecution. These law enforcement officials have been working hard on Trump's cases. These judges have been making difficult legal rulings. These prosecutors have been building comprehensive cases, but they've been facing pressure and criticism from Trump supporters. They've been facing attacks from Trump himself. But now Trump has made direct threats against them. Now Trump has tried to intimidate them. And instead of intimidating them, Trump's threats have just hardened their resolve to pursue Trump aggressively. Judges have looked at Trump's threats and said, we cannot allow Trump to succeed in intimidating us. Prosecutors have looked at Trump's threats and said, we cannot allow Trump to escape accountability through threats and intimidation. So judges and prosecutors are going to become more aggressive. Judges are going to issue harsher sentences. Prosecutors are going to file more charges. Prosecutors are going to seek longer prison sentences. Trump's threats just escalated the severity of the legal consequences Trump is going to face. Third, Trump's threats have destroyed any remaining sympathy that undecided jurors or appellate judges might have had for Trump. Jurors and judges often consider a defendant's character and behavior when making decisions. If a defendant has been respectful to the court, if a defendant has accepted the legal process, if a defendant has cooperated with the court, judges and jurors are sometimes willing to be lenient. But Trump has done the opposite. Trump has threatened judges. Trump has tried to intimidate prosecutors. Trump has tried to suppress testimony from witnesses. Trump's behavior shows complete contempt for the legal process. Trump's behavior shows that Trump views the courts as obstacles to overcome rather than as legitimate institutions deserving respect. And when jurors and judges see that behavior, when jurors and judges understand that Trump is trying to intimidate them and pressure them into ruling in Trump's favor, they respond by being much harsher. Jurors respond by convicting Trump. Judges respond by imposing harsh sentences. Trump's threats just made it almost impossible for Trump to receive anything less than maximum punishment. Fourth, Trump's threats have justified extraordinary judicial action against Trump. Some judges might have been hesitant to take aggressive action against Trump because Trump is still president. Some judges might have been reluctant to impose harsh sentences because they were worried about political backlash, but Trump's threats have changed that calculation. Judges now see Trump as a threat to the judicial system itself. Judges now see Trump as someone who is willing to use intimidation and threats to avoid accountability. And judges are responding by taking aggressive action. Judges are accelerating the timeline for sentencing. Judges are rejecting Trump's motions more quickly. Judges are issuing harsher rulings. Judges are saying, we're not going to tolerate this behavior. We're not going to allow Trump to threaten judges and get away with it. Judges are taking action to protect the integrity of the judicial system by pursuing Trump aggressively. Here's what's going to happen in the immediate future. First, prosecutors are going to file new criminal charges against Trump based on Trump's threats. The charges are probably going to be obstruction of justice, witness intimidation, and criminal threatening. These charges are going to be added to the existing charges against Trump. Trump is going to face an even larger number of criminal counts. Trump's potential prison time is going to increase dramatically. Instead of facing decades in prison, Trump might now face multiple life sentences, depending on how many charges are filed and how long the sentences are. Second, judges who have been threatened by Trump are going to impose harsh sentences when sentencing happens. Judges are going to look at Trump's threats as a factor that increases the appropriate sentence. Judges are going to say that Trump's witness intimidation and obstruction of justice warrants severe punishment. Judges are going to impose sentences that are much harsher than Trump's lawyers were expecting. Trump thought he might face a few years in prison. Now Trump might face decades or life in prison. Third, Congress is going to use Trump's threats against judges as further justification for removing Trump from office or impeaching Trump. Trump's threats against judges are going to be cited as evidence that Trump is unfit for office. Trump's threats are going to be presented as evidence that Trump is a danger to the constitutional system. Some Republicans might even break with Trump and vote for impeachment or removal because they can no longer defend Trump's threats against judges. The political pressure on Republicans to act is going to intensify because Trump's threats are so egregious. Trump's behavior is so clearly criminal and inappropriate that Republicans cannot defend it without looking like they don't respect the rule of law. Fourth, Trump's appeals and legal challenges are going to become much more difficult because judges are now viewing Trump as a threat. Judges who are sympathetic to certain legal arguments from other defendants might be less sympathetic to those same arguments from Trump now that Trump has threatened judges. Judges might reject Trump's motions more quickly. Judges might be less willing to grant stays or continuances to Trump. Judges might accelerate the legal process against Trump. So even though Trump has appealed many of his convictions and rulings, those appeals are going to be decided more quickly and more harshly against Trump because judges are angry at Trump for threatening them. The bigger picture here is that Trump has just crossed a line from being a defendant facing legal problems to being someone who is actively attempting to obstruct justice and intimidate judges and suppress testimony. And judges take that very seriously. Judges understand that if they back down in the face of Trump's threats, if they make favorable rulings just because Trump threatened them, then the rule of law collapses and the judicial system becomes corrupt. So judges are responding by becoming more aggressive in pursuing Trump's prosecution. Judges are responding by rejecting Trump's legal arguments more quickly. Judges are responding by imposing harsher punishments. Trump's threats against judges just guaranteed that Trump is going to face severe legal consequences. Trump's threats just guaranteed that Trump is going to spend decades or life in prison. Trump's threats just guaranteed that Trump's legal and political downfall is imminent. This is the moment where Trump's presidency effectively ends. This is the moment where Trump becomes primarily focused on defending himself against criminal charges instead of governing. This is the moment where Trump's political coalition fractures completely because Republicans can no longer defend Trump's conduct. Trump's threats against judges just turned his legal situation from serious to hopeless. Trump's threats just sealed his fate. And Trump made those threats knowingly. Trump made those threats in ways that were documented. Trump made those threats even though Trump understood that the threats were criminal. This is absolute desperation. This is a cornered person lashing out at the system that's pursuing him. This is the death throes of Trump's presidency. And it only gets worse from here. More charges are coming, harsher sentences are coming, congressional action is coming, and Trump's presidency is about to collapse under the weight of Trump's own criminal conduct. Stick with us because this is going to be the most dramatic legal and political downfall in American history.